All right. Hey there, and welcome to this episode where we're going to talk about the idea of getting lost in thought and really how to help get yourself back, so to speak, or get unstuck. So, I think this is going to be a shorter episode today because it's a conversation that we could have for, the next 10 hours, right? Because there's so many different ways to approach this, but really what I wanted to do is kind of offer a very simple idea. Because this is so common, right, for many of us, right? And so when it comes to getting lost in thought, well, what are we really saying, right? And the first thing is understanding is like, okay, well, who's lost, right? I mean, if we were going to ask the question, it's like, well, who's lost, right? You are, right? Where are you lost in your thoughts, right? And so what do we say when we say, I get lost in my thoughts, right? Because, it's all happening internally. And because of that, it can make us feel like, oh, well, am I going crazy? Or, all this other stuff, right? And so the first thing is understanding the two levels of consciousness that are at play here, right? You have your thoughts, and then you have the you who observes your thoughts. And what happens when you get lost in your thoughts is that your consciousness essentially gets latched on to an idea, right? And it could be an idea about anything, right? It could be about high school reunion, an old boyfriend or girlfriend. It could be about, the future and some unwanted event or it can go any way, right? And so when we talk about getting lost in thought, like we can get lost about anything. And what we want to do is understand like, okay, well, when we talk about who's lost, like really understand that, right? Like your consciousness, right, is actually so roped into an idea or a thought that, you don't even know up from down anymore. And we think oftentimes that if we figure out that thing that we're worrying about or that thing that we're lost about, that will resolve the issue. And almost 99.999% of the time, it's backwards, right? We have to get unstuck from it. And that often either reveals that there was no issue in the first place oftentimes, and more often than not, right? Because 99% of the stuff that we worry about often doesn't even happen, right? So once we, and so realizing that, right? Going deeper on the thought, thinking about it more, analyzing it more, not going to help, okay? What we need to do is we want to actually step back from it. And what do I mean by that? Well, what we want to do is we want to start to realize like, okay, my consciousness is lost in this idea, and I want to start to bring myself out of my thinking mind and really go back into the observing mind, right? And so Albert Einstein famously said, I believe, that he talked about the idea of the intuitive self versus the thinking mind, right? Or the I believe it was the rational mind and the intuitive self. I can't remember the quote, but really that we've created a world or society that honors this tool, like this thinking tool that we have, right? We have the ability to think about something, but it's forgotten about the intuitive self, right? The watching, the observing self. And because of that, we just think that because we're thinking about something, it must be important. But again, thinking is important because if we're able to use it as a tool, when your thinking is consuming you and using you, you're not using it, it's using you, right? And that's an important distinction to make. And so when it comes to, really reeling ourselves back in, that's the first thing that we need to do is just notice like, oh, I'm lost, right? Noticing that I'm lost and then coming back, right? And what do I mean by coming back? It just means, okay, like not trying to solve whatever we're thinking about and then coming back to the present moment, right? Coming back here, right? And this is where mindfulness and meditation, and that's one of the big practices, right? Is just noticing when you're lost. Like that's the first step, right? That's really the first thing that I want to talk about today is just noticing that you got lost. And even just making a note to yourself, okay, oh, shoot, I got lost again. Come back, right? Oh, got lost, come back, right? And just that practice right there can be so huge because so many of us, we're just lost and we don't even know we're lost. Like that's really, really being lost, right? And so just developing awareness of when you get lost can be such a helpful tool. And so that's all I wanted to really share for this particular episode because I just want you to start practicing that. If you get lost if you're finding yourself getting lost, it's just noticing that you're lost and coming back to the present. And if you need to do that 1,000 times in a day, it's like, that's okay, right? Because that's part of the work, right? Just coming back. So go ahead and, that's the kind of technique, so to speak, to try when we're going to start to get out of that loop, right? Just to notice first that you're even in the loop is important. And then just starting to bring your attention back into the present and to start concentrating on actually something you want to be concentrating on. And again, it's a really difficult thing, but that's one of the first steps, because we have to first know that we're lost before we can start really working on it. So, hopefully that's helpful, and hopefully you're finding this helpful and useful as well. And so if you are, we'd really appreciate if you'd share and like and subscribe, to support us at Restored Minds. And also we have some additional resources down in the notes below that will take you over to Restored Minds, where we have different downloads as well as additional trainings you can, come with us on and all that. And as well as, live Q&As, all sorts of stuff. So thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you found it helpful, chances are someone else will too, and we'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing, and also sharing this video on your social platforms. Also, if you're looking for additional help, we have some resources right down in the links below to help you on your journey. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you soon.